In the 2nd century, under the Roman Empire, the Christian church was just trying to survive amidst all kinds of misunderstandings and persecution. It was fighting a war on two fronts. From the outside, Greco-Roman philosophy threatened Christianity. From the inside, it faced attacks from Judaism, the very faith from which it had sprung. Squeezed between these two massive forces, how could Christianity prove its own identity? The church was truly caught between two different worlds, suffering under a double burden. So how did the Romans see Christians? Because Christians didn't worship the Roman gods, they were called atheists. And because they gathered for secret rituals like the Lord's Supper, love feasts, and baptism, all sorts of horrifying rumors started to spread. Ultimately, they were branded as a dangerous group that threatened the social order of Rome. Internally, there were also incredibly complex problems. Christianity had clearly started from Judaism, but now it had to walk its own path. People like Marcion argued for a complete and total break from Judaism, while others insisted that Jewish traditions and customs must still be observed. In short, events that shook the very identity of Christianity were happening constantly. In the midst of this desperate crisis, a figure emerged to confront these challenges head-on. His name was Justin Martyr. He was a Roman and a brilliant philosopher. Long before he became a Christian, he had wandered among the greatest intellectuals of his day, searching for truth. His journey was a testament to the intense human quest for truth itself. It's fascinating to follow his intellectual path. At first, he was drawn to Stoicism, but after studying it, he found it had very little to say about God. Disappointed, he moved on to the school of Aristotle, but the first thing they wanted to talk about was tuition fees, so he left there as well. Then he went to the Pythagoreans, but there was just too much to learn, mathematics, music, and more, so he gave up. Finally, in Platonism, he felt like he had finally seen a glimpse of the truth, shouting, "This is it!" Yet as he continued his studies, there was still a missing piece, something that left him feeling unfulfilled. While wandering in this state, he had a chance encounter with an old man, and their conversation changed his direction forever. The old man, whom he met by the sea, asked him a series of questions. Can philosophy give you true happiness? Have you ever seen the God that the philosophers talk about? Do you know that there were prophets far older than your philosophers? The old man then urged him to read the writings of the Hebrew prophets from the Old Testament. As Justin read the scriptures, he finally found the truth he had been searching for his entire life. He discovered not human speculation or clever arguments, but Jesus Christ, the God who spoke throughout history and finally became flesh and dwelt among us. He became convinced that in Jesus Christ, he had found the answer to fend off the attacks from both Greco-Roman philosophy and Judaism. The first front versus Rome. Building a bridge in a philosopher's robe. Roman society heard that Christians ate and drank the body and blood of Christ during the Lord's Supper and misunderstood them as cannibals. Because they called each other brother and sister, Romans accused them of being an incestuous cult. And because they disregarded social classes, with masters and slaves eating at the same table, they were seen as a threat to the social order of Rome. Rome persecuted Christianity, viewing it as a superstition for the ignorant and barbaric. In the face of Rome's ridicule, misunderstanding, and persecution, Christianity had to defend itself and communicate with the world simply to survive. As the Apostle Peter said, "Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have." That's 1 Peter 3:15. So, to solve this problem, Justin put on the robes of a philosopher and walked right into the intellectual heart of Rome. His strategy wasn't just defensive. He boldly argued that Christianity was the most perfect philosophy, the one that contained and completed all other truths in the world. His key weapon was the concept of the Logos. Now, the word logos might sound complicated, but for the intellectuals of his day, it was a very familiar term. From Plato to the Stoics, the logos was understood as the divine reason or universal principle that brought order to the universe. It was the idea that the world wasn't just a chaotic mess, but operated according to a rational principle. Justin used this concept that everyone already knew. He didn't say Socrates or Plato were wrong. On the contrary, he acknowledged that they too had seen the truth. However, he argued that they had only seen small pieces, mere fragments of the logos. After all, wasn't their wisdom also from the divine reason, the logos? But Jesus was different. He wasn't a small piece of the truth. Justin declared that Jesus was the logos itself, the complete truth, who took on a human body and came to this earth. This is exactly what the Apostle John declared in the first chapter of his gospel. This declaration had staggering implications. Suddenly, Christians could claim that the wisdom of Socrates and the insights of Plato also belonged to them. Why? Because they believed in Christ, the source of all truth. Christianity was no longer an exclusive fringe religion. It was repositioned as the most complete philosophy, one that embraced all the truth in the world. Therefore, Christianity wasn't some new cult that appeared out of nowhere. It was the fulfillment of the philosophical truth that all of humanity had been seeking. This carried on the spirit of the Apostle Paul, who stood at the Areopagus in Athens, quoted their own poets, and proclaimed, "So you are ignorant of the very thing you worship, and this is what I am going to proclaim to you." That's Acts 17:23. Justin didn't condemn secular learning. Instead, he found the fragments of truth within it and used them as a bridge to lead people to the complete truth in Christ. This wasn't just about defense or attack. It was a desperate effort to communicate. The second front, versus Judaism, drawing a line and a prophet's robe. If the task with Rome was communication, the task with Judaism was about establishing identity. At that time, Judaism enjoyed the legal status of a religio licita, a legally permitted religion within the Roman Empire. Christianity, on the other hand, was treated as a dangerous and baseless superstition. Worse, from the end of the 1st century, Rabbinic Judaism began reciting a prayer in the synagogues, the Birkat Haminim, which cursed Christians as heretics. Judaism officially labeled Christianity a heresy that didn't believe in the one true God and completely expelled Christians from the Jewish community. The Jewish community would often report Christians to the Roman authorities, providing a pretext for persecution. It's even recorded that at the martyrdom of Polycarp, the Jews were more eager than the pagans to gather the wood for the fire. In this context, Justin stood firm against a Judaism that constantly attacked and cursed Christianity and declared the church's true identity. He proclaimed, "We are not the heretics you curse. We are the true Israel, the genuine fulfillment of the promises testified in your own scriptures, the Old Testament." This connects directly to the issue Paul fought so fiercely for in books like Galatians, the question of how one becomes a true child of God. Unlike Marcion, Justin didn't discard the Old Testament. Instead, he reclaimed it, declaring that the Old Testament was, in its entirety, a Christian book that foreshadowed and prophesied Jesus Christ. He argued that the core message of the Old Testament was the coming of Jesus, and that Christ had fulfilled all of its prophecies. Furthermore, he argued that the ceremonial laws of the Old Testament, like circumcision, dietary laws, and the sacrificial system, were merely shadows that were valid only until the reality, Christ, arrived. Now that the reality, Christ, had come, he said the shadows were no longer needed. The book of Hebrews states this clearly. By calling this covenant new, he has made the first one obsolete, and what is obsolete and outdated will soon disappear. Therefore, he declared that the true descendants of Abraham, the true heirs of the promise, were not ethnic Jews, but all who, like Abraham, are justified by faith, that is, the church. Understand then that those who have faith are children of Abraham. as Galatians 3:7. This wasn't so much an attack on Judaism as it was a bold theological declaration of independence. We are not rootless. We are the true fulfillment and heirs of the promise your own scriptures testify to.
Conclusion. A defense completed by life. The power of the weak. Justin did not defend the gospel with words alone. When he boldly defended Christianity, the Roman authorities arrested him and interrogated him. The trial records paint a vivid picture of his final moments. The prefect, Junius Rusticus, tried to persuade him, promising to spare his life if he would only renounce his faith, but Justin was unshaken. Finally, around the year 165 AD, he was beheaded along with other Christians and martyred. That is why the Church calls him Justin Martyr. His martyrdom became the most powerful and final testimony to the faith and theology he had defended his entire life. Justin's life leaves us with two crucial legacies. First, the mission of building bridges. Like Justin, we should not be afraid to engage with the world's language, whether it's in science, art, humanities, or politics. We can do this because all truth is made complete in Christ. All secular knowledge is under the authority of Christ. The reason we study and learn these things is not to surrender to their logic, but to communicate the gospel to them, just as Justin did. Second, the courage to protect our identity. Like Justin, we must also be boundary drawers. In the face of temptations like syncretism or secularism, we must be clear about what is the gospel and what is not. We must proclaim that our ultimate identity is found not in the approval of the world or its culture, but in Jesus Christ alone. These two missions are just like Peter's exhortation to always be ready to give an answer to anyone who asks about the hope we have. To do that, we must build bridges with the world, while at the same time being clear about our own identity. Trapped between two powerful forces, Justin held a firm and clear stance. His life and thought show us the true source of strength that the Church today may have forgotten. Please consider subscribing and supporting Logos Community in our mission to spread the gospel. Thank you.